They're in the sheriff's custody. You need to work with these people like we've discussed with in-custody programs. But then the other half of their sentence is sentenced to some sort of a drug treatment plan when they get out, or mental health plan when they get out program. And now with the money that we have to do it and working as a team and with probation and others, that can be accomplished. But the Sheriff's Department has to be responsible mainly for the in-custody people, and I agree with that. We have a DRC program, have for years, that's Daily Reporting Center. We have GED programs, we have anger management. We have a lot of things that have been in existence for a number of years at the Sheriff's Department in our jail divisions. We've understood that we need to work with individuals. But as they get out of jail, possibly on one of these split sentences, then it's turned over to probation to follow up on it, and I think that system works well.
Okay, thank you. Mike, same question. How would you increase access to drug treatment for people caught and convicted of low-level offenses?
Well, we're currently doing it. We've done it for several years. The funding is there. We are providing opportunities for not only inmates, but I know that through HHSA there's programs available to those in the community. And I know that we have our community partners that also have opportunities for those who are seeking to make change. In the Sheriff's Department, most specifically, Dave mentioned many of the programs that we have in existence, and they are funded, have always been funded, and we provide those opportunities for all of the inmates that we're able to get into a successful program. I'm a firm believer in that you have to expand that. If we're going to look at safe communities, I believe the safest communities possible involve the community partnerships. Our community partnerships are our schools and our education programs and law enforcement and our service groups and you as citizens sitting in this room. Every one of us have to work together to make sure that we provide opportunities at every level, not just within the Sheriff's Department. I personally am involved in a couple different programs in our community, not specific to drugs, but I've taken an active role in participating in making our community better. And so I believe that all of us in this room, as well as all of us in the Sheriff's Department, have to continue thinking about great programs, intervention, educating all of us. Our parents absolutely have to begin getting involved. I can see it in the school system. My wife is a school teacher, and I can tell you that her parents are actively involved with the children in her classroom. When they identified a child that was having a difficult time, the school got involved, and the parents got involved, and my wife as the teacher got involved. It can't be limited to just law enforcement, but I would continue to work with our community partners, providing different avenues and opportunities for change at every level for the safest people.
Great, thank you. Question 7 for Mike to lead off. Do you support the use of an evidence-based assessment tool to reduce the reliance on money bail that keeps so many people incarcerated for no public safety reason while they await their day in court?
That's a long question. Can you repeat it? Please.
Okay. Do you support the use of an evidence-based assessment tool to reduce reliance on money bail that keeps so many people incarcerated for no public safety reason while they await their day in court?
I absolutely do. I just recently spoke to one of my captains. It's in reference to what probation is currently doing now. It's a risk assessment. It's a very successful risk assessment. Quite honestly, when I sat with the captain and discussed the option of using this assessment plan to allow someone back into society before they've even gone to court. The premise is innocent until proven guilty, and if there's no violence associated based on this risk assessment, then the ability for them to return into society, return to court to face their crime was a difficult one for me to swallow at first. But after seeing the evidence of the risk assessment through probation, it's a very successful program. The return to commit another crime after being evaluated on this risk assessment has been very, very successful. So he convinced me, and after looking at the tool, I see that it's a very successful alternative, especially when we have overcrowding in our jails. Currently, right now, we oversee approximately 1,700 inmates a day. The number of inmates in our jail, I like to refer to it as a living organism. There's a continual change and influx and release of inmates in our jail system, but we have a great management team that does a fantastic job of keeping the beds open for those who are most violent and releasing those back into the community through a very strict guideline, one of those being the risk assessment evidence-based program I'm talking about. And so I fully support it, although I had to do some research on it. We've been taking a good, strong look at it, and we discussed this even as of 6 months ago. So it's an alternative, and I think it's a good tool, and I'm very open for that risk assessment through probation, and it's an assessment that's been used statewide, and I support it.
Thank you. Dave, same question, and I'll say it again too, if necessary. Do you support the use of an evidence-based assessment tool to reduce the reliance on money bail that keeps so many people incarcerated for no public safety reason while they wait their day in court?
Yes, I do. And you know, the money bail system is obviously a very old, antiquated system. For years and years, it was the best we had, but it wasn't really fair to everyone because not everyone could afford to bail out. And so I do like the risk assessment that probation does. I totally agree with it. I never could understand, and when I was the undersheriff, I worked with probation in some of the other departments. Probation started the home electronic monitoring, to where a person has a monitor on their ankle usually, and it keeps them at their house if they need it. It sets off an alarm. I never could understand, that was a great program, but I could not understand why we would turn people loose out of our jails on home electronic monitoring and who have been convicted of the crime, but not use that more readily for people that have not even been convicted yet. You've been arrested, you're innocent until proven guilty. So I think that the risk assessment is good, working closely with the courts to do OR bail releases, bail lowering, release on own recognizance, all those things play a part. But I would also encourage, and if I'm the sheriff, I'll talk to the captain also about, prove to me why we can't use home electronic monitoring more, even if someone is slightly elevated risk. If we can be assured that they're going to stay at the house, perhaps that's worth taking a chance for. Not serious violent offenders. I've already said those people belong in jail. But I would just go a little bit further and research the home electronic monitoring pre-arraignment and try to get them out of the jails as soon as possible. To get back to their job, if it's a low-level offense, those people don't need to lose their job. They'll have their day in court, and I think that benefits everyone if they can keep working.
Thank you. I'm going to take a little break here to ask Arthur, could you perhaps grab another student or something and find a way to open that door and keep it propped open for us? Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Question 8. Dave leads off this time. As sheriff, how would you ensure that our county is fully compliant with the Trust Act?
I would fully ensure that by the same thing you fully ensure a lot of things in law enforcement, and that is to have ongoing appropriate training to the people that need it. And that the Trust Act has been enacted to see that local law enforcement does not put holes on immigrants that have committed low-level offenses. And it's just imperative, obviously, that the people that work in the jail, all my jail commanders, all the jail staff would know the law, be trained in the law, and we're going to abide by the law. And the law says 48 hours. I've heard some discussions about currently they give ICE 5 days to come pick them up, whatever that's about, I don't know. The law is there that says 48 hours. And, you know, as sheriff, I'm not always going to agree with the laws. The laws come down from the legislature and signed by the governor, but when I take the oath of office to obey the law, I'm going to obey the law. So, you know, it's a simple process, really. That's the law now, that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to see that the Sheriff's Department staff is trained in the law, and there's going to be policies and procedures in place to see that we abide by it.
Thank you. Same question, 8 for Mike. As sheriff, how would you ensure that our county is fully compliant with the Trust Act?
Well, we're already doing that. We had done that a long time ago under my direction, even prior to the Trust Act coming into play. And the reason for that is this, is for one, Dave's misinterpreting what we're talking about, 5 days by ICE. Let me make it very clear. What we are doing, so if you have a release date, can you hear me? Keep spading on me. Okay, how about now? My time start over? Dave was misinterpreting what I said, and let me make it very clear. When we have someone with an out date, let's make it simple for purposes of numbers. You have a 10-day sentence and you're serving all 10 days. On day 5, we notify ICE that there's 5 days left on their sentence. Even though legally, at the end of that 10-day sentence, I can hold you an additional 48 hours past that 10-day sentence because you have an ICE hold. What we're doing is that 5 days prior to the release, we are notifying ICE that you better come pick them up because we're not holding anyone 1 day longer. We've already been working under what we didn't even know the Trust Act was going to be in place in the way it was. We decided very early on that the job of the sheriff is not to enforce immigration laws. The job of the sheriff is to provide the safest communities possible for everyone. And we don't want anyone to feel intimidated in coming to law enforcement to report any type of crime with fear of being deported. We do not reach out to the federal government to report anyone in our facilities that may or may not be illegal immigrants. We don't know. We don't ask. We provide a safe and secure environment for those that are in custody in our facilities. Now, the state does receive every name of every inmate that is booked or incarcerated in the Tulare County Jail. That's forwarded to the federal government. I have no control over that. The federal government would in return contact us and make us notice of a potential hold. You get 50%. And that at the end of that time frame, we release them and do not hold them on 48 hours.
Thank you, Mike. I am told that the facilities has been notified and that the temperature has been, the thermostat has been lowered, and that we're supposed to close the doors again. Question 9. Mike, what would you do to ensure that your deputies are aware of the programs available for the homeless?
Okay. Well, currently, I am very active in the Tulare-Kings County Consortium for the Homeless. I have made myself personally involved in that program to make sure that I can take information back to our staff so that they're fully aware of the opportunities for the homeless. The Sheriff's Department has been actively involved, working alongside many of the cities in this county, trying to provide opportunities for the homeless. Many of those issues surround mental health issues. I remember a case one time where a subject was arrested, and he was arrested for what they had believed was a public intoxication. But we have what's called crisis intervention training for all of our staff. All of our staff go through that training to help recognize issues of mental health. This particular subject was evaluated by mental health and learned that he was off of his medication. This was recognized by our staff, who have already been receiving training to recognize issues of mental health. And in law enforcement, it's incumbent upon us to already, with as many that we come in contact with a variety of situations, to really quickly try to evaluate the status of that individual. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's not. We train our staff not only in the jails, but in the field, so that we can provide proper either treatment or proper attention so that they can receive the best possible attention as far as the safety to them and safety to our staff. So the homeless receives much attention from the Sheriff's Department as well as our community, and I would continue those efforts not only with the Sheriff's Department but as a community as a whole.
Thank you. Dave, same question. what would you do to ensure that your deputies are aware of the programs available for the homeless?
The same thing Mike just said, and most of that was going on when I was the undersheriff and throughout the last years of my career. One thing that I'll do is make sure the deputies, both patrol deputies and jail deputies, know that so many of these people, and I'm not a doctor, but I've seen it over 34 years in law enforcement, so many of the homeless people are mentally ill. And they don't, in my opinion, need to be living under the bridge on the river. They need to be in a hospital. And that's a societal problem that's happened in the state of California many years ago. So, you know, that's not the sheriff's fault, that's not the DA's fault, that's not anybody, current people's fault that are in power in the government. But it would be incumbent upon me as the sheriff to know and to see that my deputies have the appropriate training and know that these people mainly are mentally ill, and if they need to go to jail, obviously, crisis intervention, they'll be screened at the jail, and they'll be afforded every opportunity that Tulare County has. And I'm happy to say, because of AB 109 and all the money that's been received by Tulare County, there's a lot more in mental health that can be done for these people now than we've ever had before.
Thank you. Question 10, for Dave first. Do you support law enforcement training programs in mental health, first aid, and assistance? First aid and assist? Okay, just reading the question. That's how it's written here. Okay.
You're going to have to repeat that there, because I got hung up on that last word.
Do you support law enforcement training programs in mental health, first aid, and assist? Is that how it's supposed to be read?
Okay, I understand, and I think I just answered that, yes. The answer is yes, I do. I mean, we can't have enough training at the sheriff's department or in any public agency, and I obviously, I agree with that, and I would continue.
Mike?
Yes.
The audience, thank you. Question 11, Mike first, both of you on that last answer there. What is the role of higher education in your department?
It goes to me first?
Yes, you go first, Mike.
Okay, well, you know, for me, what I did is I went back to school. I received my bachelor's degree in criminal justice and continued my education in completing my master's degree in the administration of justice. And then after that, what I did is I applied for and was accepted to what's called the West Point Leadership Academy. That's given by the Los Angeles Police Department. And it brings together law enforcement executive managers from all over the state of California. We're able to sit and learn and get different ideas and opinions and the successes and failures of those different agencies. After successful graduation from that academy, I went on to and applied for the FBI National Academy, where it's a 3-month program in Quantico, Virginia. And I sat with people from not only all over this nation, but I sat with executive law enforcement managers from all over this world, from Saudi Arabia to Afghanistan to Iraq. And I have to tell you that after coming out of all of these programs, you get a different sense and feel for what the world has to offer. And you get a different sense of what you're able to offer. And from the successes and failures of other agencies and sitting and talking with people to get those opinions, I have to tell you that for me, it's given me and opened my eyes to innovative and productive ideas to help provide the safest communities for Tulare County. So if we can encourage our staff, although it's not mandated at this time, I strongly encourage anyone to get out and get an education, to open your eyes to different views, to different styles, to different successes and failures of what has happened all over this world, and I think that makes a better leader. It gives you the sense of direction as to a positive influence for the future. And so if I can encourage my staff to do so, we'll encourage it. However, it's not mandated at this time.
Thank you. Dave, Same question, number 11. What is the role of higher education in your department?
Higher education is wonderful, and it should be used as a tool to become and be a good law enforcement officer. When I was in command staff at the Sheriff's Department, both as a captain for 10 years and as the undersheriff for 9 years, and Mike will remember, we would have biannual retreats and where all the command staff got together as a team and decided and talked about what should be the future for the Tulare County Sheriff's Department. And we all agreed that higher education is very important to bring the department forward. So let me preface by saying I agree with that. That's the plan, and as Mike says, we're working toward that goal. It's not mandatory, but it is preferred, and it goes a long way in helping you get promoted. Now, with my personal history, I'm proud to say that I'm a graduate of the College of Sequoias, and I have an A.S. degree in criminal justice. When I was 32 years old, I was a captain running divisions. I was very busy. My wife was in RN school. We were raising 3 little kids, and I was trying to save money for their college. And then at the age of 42, I was the undersheriff. And I had thought about trying to go to the FBI Academy, but the sheriff said, you can't be gone for 4 months. You can't go to the FBI Academy. And I agreed with it at the time. You know, I'm already the undersheriff. I should encourage others below me that have a chance to promote when I'm gone to go to those courses and those academies and to have the time necessary and the support from the boss to get their education. I kind of refer to experience. I think higher education is excellent, and it's a tool to complement the experience. And so, you know, I encourage it.
Thank you. Dave, this one's for you first. How do you plan to recruit and retain highly qualified deputies?
I think we do a good job at that. I know we did when I was there, and part of the effort we made was we ran into a problem years ago about our jail system growing faster than the operations side of the organization. Mike will remember this. We have 4 jails, as he mentioned, and so the vast majority of the sheriff's employees are assigned to jails. Several years ago, we had regular deputy sheriffs that had attended and graduated the post-academy, full-fledged law enforcement officers working in our jails. It got to where we could not recruit, because most guys that put themselves to the academy, they want to drive a police car with a red light on top of them, chase criminals. They don't want to go to the jail, and the only fair way to rotate them out was based upon seniority, so someone could have been in the jails forever. To make a long story short, because I know I'll run out of time here, we came up with the concept, and even though it was under my command, I always believe in saying we. I think a good leader gives the credit to the people he works with. We came up with the plan to make correctional officers in the jail. I had 3 main concerns with that program. Number 1, I didn't want them to lose salary, so we could continue to recruit good people. I wanted them to be able to carry firearms. And third, I wanted them to have their own career track, because if someone's going to come in and want to have a career in corrections, then they need to have their own career track, so they'll spend their career there. And all that's been accomplished. We have a good correctional division, sergeant, lieutenant, captain. They can go up within the division and specialize in corrections. And that's gone a long way in helping us recruit good people. And I would say the only thing I want to change when I'm sheriff is that I want, as a department, I think we should sponsor certain individuals to go to the police academy. People that are in our corrections that want to go back over on the operations side, the department would be dollars ahead by sponsoring them. I got the break.
All right, thank you. Mike, same question. How do you plan to recruit and retain highly qualified deputies?
Well, we're currently recruiting all the time. And Dave is right, we do have a correctional division that is very successful. However, we need to give credit where credit is due. Bill Whitman put that program, not Dave Wake. And that program was put together by a sheriff who saw innovatively to the future of a program that was designed very uniquely for the success of this county. And I have to tell you, we have men and women beating down our doors to become correctional deputies in the sheriff's department. We're excited about the new and innovative, productive ideas that they're coming up with. We have a CERT team. We have a gang unit in the jails, detective unit that we're putting together, and we're now looking at having canines implemented into our correctional environment. The career track for the correctional environment is very exciting, and the future is very exciting for them. As far as our staff for the patrol side of things, we equally have application after application coming in with men and women in this department so excited about the future that we're not having a retention problem. We're having, what we did is we, just in the last 6 months, we hired 12 new patrol staff to provide safer communities for Tulare County. We're in a rebuilding phase, and we have people looking to get hired with our department, not looking to leave. We hired 15 new staff in our correctional environment, and we are not having a retention problem because we pay well. We have a good, strong environment for our staff to work in. They're excited about being here, especially with the future and what it holds. Sheriff Bill Whitman has brought this agency into the last 20 years. I'm hoping to take it into the next 20.
Thank you. Now, at this point, in the interest of brevity, we're going to cut the 13th question and roll that into their closing statements. The 13th question was to be, if you are elected, what could we expect to see addressed in your first 12 months? So I'm sure you'll want to talk about that in your closing statements anyhow. And also, regrettably, because of the time factor, we did get a lot of audience questions, but we're going to really need to move on to the district attorney phase here so that we can, get folks out of the reasonable hour. So, closing statements. Mike, it's your turn to go first. We've got 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Thank you very much. Well, to everyone tonight, thank you so much. This is a great turnout. Very exciting to see that there's so many people interested in listening to both of the candidates up here tonight. I'm thanking you for that. This is the biggest election for sheriff in the last 20 years. It's an exciting time. And so we need to look to the future for the next 20 years. I believe that the future rests with someone who is fresh, innovative, comes up with efficient and exciting ideas for the future, who has the backing of the men and women of this department. I can tell you that we had a forum much like this. We had about 170 deputies show up. The men and women that work for our department. We had a forum. My challenger here was there, and so was I. And the deputies were able to vote in a secret ballot. And there was 166 votes that were cast. I received 146 of those votes from the men and women of the Department of the Tulare County Sheriff's Department who have made their selection for the future of our department. We're unified, we're not separated, we're not divided. Those numbers are clear. You'll hear my challenger say that the department is divided and that he wants to bring us back together. Well, I have a hard time believing that 20 people is the one that divides this department. It's unified. We're together. And I'll tell you that I believe that I'm the future of this department, the future of the county. I want to provide the safest possible communities for everyone in this room. I have a young family, and my focus is on my family and the rest of you who have families, to provide the safest environments possible. How do we do that? By working together. Every one of the questions that you heard here tonight involve all of us, not just me as your sheriff. I work for you. I will do everything that I can as your sheriff to meet in your communities, to regularly get out into the community, to open up forums just like this. And even though it's not a candidate's night, that you can ask the sheriff very hard, difficult questions on how we move to the future. I believe that I'm that person. I've gone back to school and gotten an education, and it's true, you don't have to have an education to be a police officer, but it sure helps if you want to learn how to do things successfully by learning from others. And then because of my education and because of my 28 years of experience with the Sheriff's Department, I can tell you that not only do I carry the experience, but the education and the support of the men and women of this department. And I'm proud to be sitting here tonight. I'm proud to be sitting as your acting sheriff. And I can tell you that I have the endorsement of all 5 Tulare County Board of Supervisors, and I have the endorsement of all of Kern County, Kings County, Fresno County, and Madera County Sheriff's Department. I can tell you that I have the endorsement, an overwhelming endorsement of law enforcement in this county and the elected community leaders of this county. And why is that? Because I've proven myself. I've proven myself with the 28 years that I will work well with others and that we will look to making our communities as safe as possible. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Dave Whaley, 3 minutes for your closing statement.
I too would like to thank everyone for being here tonight. The reason I'm running for sheriff is I'm passionate for the Sheriff's Department. I've worked there since I was 18 years old. I love the Sheriff's Department, and I know it's time for new leadership. My opponent here says there's no problems at the Sheriff's Department. Morale is high because he got the DSA endorsement. People, there's 500 persons at least in that DSA, and he just indicated 166 people. Does that tell you there's a unity, that people care about their department, want to come out and support either he or I? I think there is. I know there's a problem with the Sheriff's Department. I get calls every day. All you'd have to do is talk to some individuals that work there, not the people that follow Mike around, but the people that are actually working there, and there is a problem, and that's why I'm running. Now, with that said, my platform is simple. I want to go back to good public service. When you call the Sheriff's Department, request a deputy, you're going to get a deputy. And I am tired of hearing politicians indicate, always point fingers at one another. It doesn't matter whether they have an R behind their name or a D behind their name. Nobody stands up and takes accountability for their actions anymore. When I'm the sheriff, if I make a mistake, and I will, I'm only human, I'm going to stand up and admit I made a mistake, and we're going to fix it. I am not going to point fingers and blame things and try to cover things up. And I think as a leader, the lady that introduced us tonight had it down pat. As a leader, you've got to be credible. You've got to be above reproach. And I intend to be that person. When I'm the sheriff, nobody, myself, any of my staff, or anything else is going to be above the law. So with that said, I take my responsibility seriously. I want to do a good job for the citizens of Tulare County. And I'm the one with the experience. You know, Mike has the education. I have the experience, not only at the lowest levels of the department, the law enforcement part of the department. I have the experience in the command of the department. I was a captain for 10 years. I commanded every division. I was Bill Whitman's undersheriff for 9 years. So, you know, if I wasn't doing a good job, Bill Whitman wouldn't have had me there for 9 years. And he told everybody I was doing a good job, and I know how to run the Sheriff's Department. So with that, I'll just say that our department is an $88 million department. It's a multifaceted law enforcement agency. Education is fine, but experience is what we need. I kind of compare experience and education to like the Captain Sully Sullenberger that landed the airliner in the Potomac and saved everybody's life. He might have had a PhD, but it's the experience that saved those people. So with that, thank you very much, and I appreciate your support.
Ladies and gentlemen, your two candidates for sheriff, these are the gentlemen, one of whom you will entrust to keeping us safe while respecting our rights. And we've been privileged to have Mike Monroe and Dave Whaley here with us this evening. shorter half. The original intention of the organizers was to have 13 questions. However, we have pared that down to 7. We've eliminated 6 questions. So this will proceed with no greater dispatch. My apologies, gentlemen. Let me introduce to you our 2 candidates for the District Attorney of Tulare County. On the left, Ralph Cable, and on the right, Tim Ward. And with no further ceremony, let us proceed. Ralph, being on the left alphabetically, he will get the first question to go first. So Ralph, this is question 1, if you happen to have the number anyway. California spends over $9 billion a year on corrections. In developing policies for charging and plea bargaining, would you consider the impact these choices have on both the counties and the state's corrections budget?
Well, actually, I think that's really important. Look at that. I don't know if this mic's working right, but you have to look at the budget. I think of the state and the county and everything, because it's one of those things that is so in the forefront of all of our minds. We have a budget that we have to work with. So I think what you do is you don't necessarily use your charging. You don't charge things lesser because you're worried about finances, because you just can't do that. It's not a great public policy. What you do is you charge what you think you can prove, and then as far as sentencing, what you do in court, the judge makes the sentence decision, but you advocate for programs, you advocate for other things. You also have things like, if you do take a plea, one of the things that you can do that's very cost effective everywhere is to get a appellate waiver. You get that appellate waiver, then you stop the appeals of everything else going on. And that saves an awful lot of money. We looked at that. I've trained in the DA's office about how to do that effectively, and that's something I would definitely look at.
Thank you. Tim, same question. California spends over $9 billion a year on corrections. In developing policies for charging and plea bargaining, would you consider the impact these choices have on both the counties and the state's corrections budget?
In some ways, yes, and let me clarify and exclude from those areas. With regard to the function of charging, that's an ethical responsibility that members of the office take very seriously. One thing that we will not do is alter the charging to effectuate the California Department of Corrections budget. I stand for the premise that even in post-realignment, that our state prisons are for the most serious and violent felons that commit crimes in our communities. I think it's our responsibility to charge accordingly, and those who, if they have violated the law, should be housed in state prison. This issue is really the global issue of realignment and why we have realignment. And so the second part of that, absolutely, we have to factor in smart ways how we are going to sentence and allow our bed space in our local facilities to be occupied. We've got to be smart about how we resolve cases, but we've also got to make sure that from the district attorney's standpoint, we have a singular focus, and that's to provide justice to the victims of crime, rehabilitation, restitution to those victims, and we're going to protect the communities, and that's our first and foremost responsibility. But we're going to do it ethically and responsibly, but we have to look at it globally and make sure that when we're talking about dispositioning of cases, that we do so with the ultimate goal that we can rehabilitate that person, hopefully not see them in the system, continue that budget anomaly, because what that figure, the reason why it increases so much is the repeat recidivism rate that's been inherent in CDCR for decades.
Thank you. Second question for Tim. First, studies show racial disparities in drug law enforcement, despite the fact that white people and people of color use and sell drugs at about the same rates. What would you do to minimize these disparities?
We, under our torch in our office, We kind of go by the motto that no one is above enforcement of the law and no one is below protections of the law. But other than that, we are not looking at in the charging function of what our deputy district attorneys do anything other than an individual, whether they committed a crime. In fact, it's not something that we look at when we decide to file charges. So we must work closely with law enforcement, but really this is a training and awareness issue for our staff. And I'm proud to say that we continue to train in conjunction with our office, the local bar, and the California District Attorneys Association on inherent bias, if you will, for lack of a better term, in the criminal justice system. So we're going to do everything we can to eliminate that. Really, a lot of the studies focus on law enforcement, and they do bear the burden of that. When the cases come to us, we look at them, they're simply black and white because it's ink on a paper, and that's really all it is. And we're not going to look, and we should not look any different. We're going to treat everybody fairly and equally.
Thank you. For Ralph, same question. Studies show racial disparities in drug law enforcement, despite the fact that white people and people of color use and sell drugs at about the same rates. What would you do to minimize these disparities?
Well, it's so important that everyone's treated fairly by the criminal justice system. It doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter, whether you have a deer in our right name or anything else, none of that should matter. So what happens is you review cases exactly how, when they come in, I would train my people to do what I always did and what I was taught, is you don't look at a particular, you don't look what the person looks like, you don't know who they are, you just look at the case and you evaluate the case for what it's worth and whether or not that person is black or white or not. That doesn't make any difference because treat everyone in the criminal justice system the same. That person could be a law enforcement officer, that person could be a teacher, that person could be a homeless person. It really doesn't make any difference. And you need to train that way. You need to start that way at the top. You have someone who has the passion to do the job, someone who cares a lot about what they're doing, and then you keep that and you train that, and that will fall through the entire organization.
Thank you. On to the next question where Ralph will lead off. Ralph, what would you do to reduce the number of juveniles, particularly Latino, African American, and Asian American youth who are brought into the criminal justice system? What policies would you put in place to ensure fair and unbiased use of prosecutorial discretion in juvenile court?
Well, I think the first part of your question talks about what would I do before I bring them into the system. So the thing is, what I think the district attorney's office needs to do, and I'm an advocate of this, I've been talking about this, but I think the district attorney's office needs to get out into the community. There are programs that the district attorney's office has and should continue not only to have those, but seek out alternate programs. And you need to go to where you can really effectuate those juveniles. You need to go to the schools. We need to be talking in the schools. We need to continue with other programs that like your Step Up and those kind of programs. But, part of the thing is there's some of these things that we're taught to do is outreach and tell the community what we're doing. But we need to go to where the heart of the problems are in some of these things. So we need to go into the areas where we can really talk to those kids and try to get those kids not to get into a life of crime. But then the second part of your question talks about what would I do when they're in the system? Well, I think that depends on the age of the child and everything else, but I don't think, again, that you charge necessarily something different. What you do is you try to have programs, and they're evidence-based programs that you work with, and probation has a lot of really good programs that they're working with. And you train your deputy district attorneys, and what they do is they know which programs are good and which programs aren't. And you try to work and get those people into those programs, because what we need to do is we need to change those juveniles around at that time, because that's the best thing that we can do for our community to make sure that those children don't grow up into a life of crime.
Thank you. Tim, same question. First, what would you do to reduce the number of juveniles, particularly Latino, African American, and Asian American youth who are brought into the criminal justice system? And then what policies would you put in place to ensure fair and unbiased use of prosecutorial discretion in juvenile court?
With regard to the second aspect of that, a lot of the premises remain. We are going to be, as we currently are today, and for evermore henceforth, looking at every case on a case-by-case basis, and we're not going to be considering a person's gender, race, orientation in any way, in not only the filing of charges, but the disposition of the case. The juvenile justice system has a lot of what I'll call diversion programs. We are utilizing those every day. I've been your district attorney for over a year now. Two functions or two decisions that I made directly impact this. Number one, I put the most experienced team out in our juvenile justice division than we've ever had. I spread our experience across the office. Some of our attorneys didn't like that. We had attorneys that have been in the office for a number of years, and day one on the job, I looked them in the eye and said, there's no job above us and no job below us, and some of those people went to the juvenile justice system, and they're doing great work there. Secondly, the other thing that I did was I told our staff that we're going to increase our outreach and our education to the community. And I'm proud to say that in 2013, we touched over 10,000 people in our communities, many of whom are in our schools. We are, by the very, the office that we hold, we can be great role models for our children in the communities and our students in the high schools. And we're going to do everything we can to do that. And I'm proud to say that we've been doing that all year long, and we're going to continue to do it.
Thank you. Our fourth question. This one will start with Tim. As district attorney, how would you handle a fatal use of force incident involving local police?
As the member of the Police Chiefs Association, technically the district attorney is the chief law enforcement officer of the county. When I became district attorney, I met with the police chiefs, and the issue of officer-involved shootings and these fatal use of force was something that's been talked about for a while. It had been in transition. Our standpoint is we did not want any singular police agency to investigate their own. We wanted and asked for the police chiefs to join in making a decision that an outside agency will review any shooting by a member of their agency. And I'm proud to say, not because of me, but because of the great organization of our police chiefs, we're doing that now. So we do have some degree of transparency looking at. The role that we have, though, is, in a way, we police the police, I guess, in that regard. And that is a decision that I take very seriously. Anytime a case like that comes in, I assign the most senior staff in our office to review that. Our supervisor of our homicide team and assistant DA or another supervisor in the office, if he's not available within the time and manner, are going to review those cases. Those are our most senior attorneys. Those are also then going to be looked at by the executive management team and make sure that the correct decision was made. We're going to try to make that decision in a timely manner for the community, and we've been doing that very well, I think, because the community needs to know that there is somebody looking out as a, I guess, an oversight, for lack of a better term, for the agencies to do that. And the police chiefs buy into that as well.
Thank you. Ralph, same question. As district attorney, how would you handle a fatal use of force incident involving local police?
Well, the important thing to know is that another agency always reviews that case. So what happens is the first thing they do is they go out and do the investigation. So if I say a police officer is involved in a fatal shooting incident, then that's usually investigated by deputy sheriffs or somebody else like that. And then they'll send that case to the DA's office. And, you know, I've stood for this premise from day one, and I say it every time, but it doesn't really matter what walk of life you are, those cases need to be reviewed like any other case. And so you review those cases, you look at those cases carefully, and, you know, it's a rare circumstance where law enforcement you have charges filed upon them. But if they do, then they know that the person that they're backing in this race is willing to charge them if I have to. But that's not what I want to do. That's not what anybody wants to do. But you have to be willing to be the person who's going to make the hard choices and do the right thing every single time.
Thank you. Question 5 for Ralph to start with. 63% of people in California's jails are being held pre-trial. What steps would you take to safely reduce the rate of pre-trial incarceration in our county?
Well, I think that probation is working on that really hard right now. Being someone who works within the system right now as a criminal defense attorney, I see these cases happen quite often. Probation does a risk analysis, and I don't think they release enough of these people because they just don't have enough ways to do that yet, but they are working on it. And I do think that pre-trial, the real big issue is that you are innocent until proven guilty. But the thing that's important is that the community needs to be kept safe. And when judges look at bail, they look at the fact that you are guilty, really, before you're actually proven guilty. That's what actually the code says, because you believe it to be true. So I think probation, the sheriff's department, the district attorney, they all need to get together. And if someone's really dangerous, nobody here, nobody anywhere else wants them on the street. And you work out to keep those people in. But the people that are not in danger, that can still walk our streets while they're fighting their case, that should be done. I would do everything I can to do that.
Thank you. Tim, same question. The 63% of people in California's jails are being held pre-trial. What steps would you take to safely reduce the rate of pre-trial incarceration in our county?
My predecessor, Phil Klein, tasked me with, prior to realignment ever becoming law, to join the California District Attorneys Association on the training for the DA's offices around the state. As a result of that, we were better prepared in our county because of our CCP for this very issue. So let me answer it this way. We expanded our early case disposition courts, which is in custody individuals that are arrested. They have a court date. Right after that court date, we have a short court date setting out at the pretrial facility in North County. And we have a probation officer, a district attorney, a member of the defense bar right there to address those early confinement issues at the earliest time. After that, there's some cases that don't resolve in the early case disposition status. The post-realignment crunch for us has been in notifying victims of these pretrial release hearings. We're going to do that. It's our job. It's something that we've taken on. It's how we use our CCP funding. That was a question earlier. That's how we use it. We're going to make sure that we notify the victims that we're doing it. We have to do it. Another way that we're doing it is, for the first time ever, I instituted a community accountability program for low-level misdemeanor offenders that are in jail, to have a pre-filing diversion program to keep those individuals out of the facility in the first place for driving on a suspended license, driving without a license. Those are not the individuals that should be taking up our sheriff's bed space. So we're hitting it on a global approach from a number of different levels.
Thank you. Question 6. This one is for Tim to start with. As DA, what would you do to develop a trusting relationship with the immigrant community in Tulare County?
Prior to becoming DA, when I was assistant DA, I oversaw a grant application, and we were awarded a grant application to serve the it was an underserved grant. We added Spanish-speaking victim advocates to assist in that communication of victims and witnesses entering into the criminal justice system. I understand that population could be hesitant to report or continue to be a witness based on immigrant status. I'm here to tell you that we have done a lot of good outreach with promoting the U visa and T visa programs that, quite frankly, I was appalled at how the communities out there didn't even know that your immigration status cannot be used in any way to deter you from participating in the criminal justice system. Every single brochure that we have in our office, when I took over, I made sure that we have those available in the Spanish language as well. And I think we're down to the last one, maybe one or two left that are being reviewed right now. We're doing everything we can, again, in that decision I made to increase our education and outreach to make sure that the underserved communities know that your status is not in any way a factor. As I said, no one is below enforcement or no one is below protection of the law, and we're going to do everything we can to communicate that. And the U-Visa, T-Visa program is a great program to do that with.
Thank you. Same question for Ralph. As DA, what would you do to develop a trusting relationship with the immigrant community in Tulare County?
I think the first thing you do is you go out and talk to them. You go all over this entire county and you go out and you talk to them. You have office hour in different areas of the community. You let people come talk to you about what's going on. With regard to status, nobody's status should make any difference regarding if they're a victim of a crime, you're a victim of a crime, or we want to help you. The U-Visa program's been around for a long time. In the district attorney's office, at least as of December of this last year, there wasn't a program to have somebody reviewing those quickly and effectively. There may be now, I know it's an election year, but it's important that people know that you have to go out there, you have to talk to the people, you have to treat everybody the same, because that's the way it is. And so, that's one of the things I've taken very seriously. I've gone out and talked to people. I've already, I've been all over the county. And I think it's important that everybody out there feels included and that nobody feels that they're not part of the system. And so not only do I feel it's important, it's the right thing to do, because as a DA, you need to do the right thing for the right reasons every day. The other thing is, I'm proud to say that, my opponent and I have talked to this group, and we've gone out and I've been endorsed by the Tulare County Hispanic Roundtable. I've been endorsed by El Centro Americano Latino. I've gone out to these groups and I've talked to them. I've shared with them the vision that I have for the county, and they've chosen me to be their next district attorney. And I appreciate that, and that shows the level of participation that I want to have with not only those communities, but every community in the county.
Thank you. Question 7 for Ralph to start off. What would you do as the DA to address the criminalization of the homeless?
Well, we actually just got asked that question fairly recently ago. One of the things I think we have to do is we have to have coalition group of different agencies together. And it's important that, not every one of these people has mental health problems, but we need to work with mental health very closely so that we can help these people. Nobody wants to criminalize homeless people just for, laying in the street or doing anything like that. That's not going to do anyone any good. So we need to have these partnership programs. We need to work with not only law enforcement, work with mental health, work with crisis intervention, these kind of things, so we can help these people. And if these people need treatment, we ought to provide that treatment. We ought to have some different kind of coalition group, community organizations. There's a lot of things out there. If we train our law enforcement and our district attorney's office to help these people, then that's what's going to work in the long run. It's not going to work to just throw them in jail.
Thank you. Tim, same question. What would you do as the DA to address the criminalization of the homeless?
And I can answer this not in the what if, but in the what did I do. I took a stand when our cities wanted to create a homeless diversion court and solve this problem by arresting the homeless and yet then divert them into a program. I took a stand and said absolutely not. We are not going to waive or set aside our ethical obligations because we're not going to do it. It wasn't the right thing to do. And we came to a resolution that I think is meaningful on that. But we took the stand. I took the stand. That is not going to happen under our regime. Our attorneys know, and our staff knows that is not going to happen. I don't have to train my attorneys to not file charges when there's no crime. We've got the most professional senior staff that we've had in a long time. This is really an issue for cities and the communities out there. We're going to partner with them in every way that we can, but the reality is I, as the district attorney, am not going to allow our office and our charging function to be utilized in some way to solve that as a housing issue. That's not the right thing to do. So we took that stand, and it's been productive.
Okay, thank you both. It's now time for our closing statements, and it is Tim's turn to go first. So 3 minutes, Tim Ward, your closing statement.
Thank you, and again, thanks for coming out tonight. In the interest of brevity, let me tell you that I've been your district attorney for over a year now. I was proud when your district attorney for 20 years, Phil Klein, talked to me and asked me to be his replacement. I was proud when the Board of Supervisors unanimously chose me to do that well over a year ago, and I still have their unwavering support and unanimous support today. I don't come out and sit in front of you tonight and say, as your DA, I'm going to aggressively prosecute homicide cases and gang cases and violent crimes, because the reality is, quite frankly, that's my job. That is the fire that burns in our belly every day when we wake up and go to work. That's what we love doing. What our office has done is take an approach that we're going to protect our vulnerable victims first. We looked at our rural crime prevention program, added more resources there. We looked at protecting the most vulnerable victims in our communities, and those are our children. For the first time ever in the history of this office, and really a pioneering thing around the state, I created a division that does nothing but crimes against children, from all crime types, ranging from homicide to sexual assault to physical abuse, neglect, drug endangerment. The children that are not only victimized, but the children that are witnesses to these cases have better wraparound services now than they've ever had before, and I'm proud of the work that our staff's done. We didn't stop there. We enhanced our domestic violence, our intimate violence programs. We enhanced our elder abuse programs, because that's where our focus needed to be, and it's where it was. Let's first and foremost set forth an office structurally that's going to protect, in the realm of public safety, our most vulnerable victims first. Didn't do it at the expense of not prosecuting the other cases. Quite to the contrary. We restructured and made our office more efficient in how we do business. Going forward, we're looking at some innovative things. We're going to continue with our civil gang injunctions. I am developing a task force on human trafficking. That's something that's near and dear to many of us. We're going to be tackling this underground economy going forward, and we're going to be leading the county and really the state in the innovative things that we're doing. We're already doing it. We are one of the few offices that's, in essence, paperless post-filing. We file all our cases electronically with the court. There's a few other offices around the state that do it. We're an innovative office. We're a new office. And I can tell you, as your district attorney, I've got a great group of men and women who stand ready. They're passionate to do it. I've been in public.
I'm Ralph Gable. I'm running for district attorney. I want to tell you just a little bit about myself. I was a prosecutor here in Tulare County for 14 years. I did pretty much every kind of crimes. I worked in the, juvenile division, the misdemeanor division, welfare fraud. I prosecuted child sexual assault and supervised that division. I also prosecuted Porterville area. I just want to be in law enforcement. Article came out in the paper today. You can read a little bit about me. But I want to be in law enforcement, and I decided to go into the district attorney's office. I have a bachelor's in public administration, and I graduated with honors from Cal State University. And I just want to lead this office. I want to make our community safer. One of the things that I just want you to pay attention very closely when you listen to both of us speak, listen to where we're going in this county. My opponent used the word regime, and under his regime, the first thing he did in office is he let go two attorneys with a lot of experience, and that was about 28 years worth of experience. And then, as I'm running for district attorney, I've already been endorsed at that time by 6 law enforcement agencies, including the Deputy Sheriff's Association, including the Police Officers Association of Visalia, Vancouver, Lindsay, Amsterdam, and the Probation Association. My opponent, for political reasons, let my wife go, put me with the district attorney here. Is this really what we want as our district attorney? And it's not a personal thing. And something I think is important that everyone knows. the reason I think that it's so important is because when you get rid of someone just for political reasons, is that the person that you want as our top property? And I'm supported by a lot of law enforcement. Everyone knows that. I just want to do the right thing for the right reasons every day. And I ask for your support and your help.